they feel like they've missed some sort of exciting moment on the show here. They haven't really.
Right.
They know that, but anyway, it's the pre-Dynamite stream once again. I have an actual good guest today, someone that mere hours ago was doing important things, which is always
Oh,
rare.
come on.
It's true. It's true. The great Connor Casey. Connor, you're a distraction legend. How you doing today, my friend?
Joseph, how are you today? I am doing well. Like you said, my interview with Malachi Black went up earlier today. I had some pressing questions for him, namely, what's up with the eye? What's up with the headpiece and the screaming music? I even got a Bud Matthews spin out that I'm holding that one. That one gets its own piece.
See, that just feels like that's distraction content, brother. I'm so proud of you for that. That's tremendous. Okay.
I will let you know when that one's live.
Did you ask him about this image that he took with Swerve? Because there's a detail to it that is the funniest thing I've probably ever seen all year.
No, I think we talked before that went up. What was it?
So Swerve's been posting pictures with the AEW guys, and that's awesome. We all want, Swerve. But he took one with Malachi, and Malachi did this deal where he did this with his eye. To suggest that when he doesn't have the gimmick on, he's just got one eye.
Yeah. he wore glasses the whole time with me to where he points at the eye. I'm just like, are you implying that the eye is messing with you right now?
He's incredible. He's had a great time, great run in AEW, but that stuff will always. It fascinates me what the mileage actually is of that stuff,
Well, people, they knock the lore. I know that's one of Jack Crosby's least favorite words when it comes to wrestling. But man, I feel like Malachi could write a book about this character he is trying to create, and you got to respect that and the creativity that goes into that.
I would love to know what percentage of his fan base, specifically him, is into the lore, because I think it's a lot higher than people realize. Me personally, I'm a fan of his because he's a good wrestler. I don't really care about that stuff, but I'm a dork, right? People love that stuff, man. They're into it. I'm sure you'll see that when the feedback to your interview too. So it's definitely interesting, the lore that we often get into in professional wrestling. Now, Connor, I don't want to make this show, I'm not going to bring it to a screeching halt, but we do have a serious topic to get to, as I told you before we went on the air. It's been a bad week for professional wrestling, as Dave Meltzer said. The ratings have dropped. We like to stay current here, so we're not going to talk about last Friday's AEW Rampage program. We're going to keep it to simply Monday Night Raw and NXT 2.0. When the news dropped, I called Robert O'Neill, and he immediately said to me, Joe, I need to speak on behalf of my people. I need to send a message. I need to calm everyone down. So in fear of just hijacking this program, let's just get out of the way. Folks, here is the great Robert O'Neill's comment on the frankly disgusting ratings of this evening. Here we go.
Hey everybody, I just saw the Raw and NXT ratings for this week, and I just wanted to touch base with you all and check in here. They're both very low. It's not great. It's definitely troubling. I do think you need to remember, the way people watch television has changed, but overall it's not great, but all we can do is just let it play out.
Oh my! I don't know what it is about Robert O'Neill. That just makes me burst out laughing every time.
He's so wonderful. I messaged him 90 minutes ago. I was like, can you send me a video, Bob? And I had no doubt it was going to be that funny. Of course he would say, let it play out, and linear eyeballs. And in all seriousness, Connor, are you a big ratings guy?
I'm not. I think that an entire generation of wrestling fans was taught to obsess over it.
Yeah.
And then the generation that followed was effectively told that the ratings were not only what defined the Monday Night Wars, but what caused them to end.
Mm-hmm.
And that is obviously not true. And if you need a long form explanation of why, look up that book that came a couple years ago, Nitro.
Yes.
Because whereas the death of WCW makes the argument that it was the creative side that caused WCW to die, this book takes the what I feel like is the more factual approach and says, no, it was really the business side of things and just utter disinterest from Time Warner. And when you no longer had Ted Turner being able to say, nope, the wrestling company stays no matter how much money it is or isn't making, it was gonna die regardless. It would have died no matter how good the ratings were. So when we look at the ratings now, I won't lie and say that it wasn't fun to peek at them when Dynamite and NXT are running head to head, just because it gave you a sense of which show was doing better, which was connecting with the audiences more, and and that answer became very apparent very quickly. But when Raw hits the lowest demo it's ever done, or has the lowest third hour, does that mean that something is going to happen the following week that actually changes it? No. The show is going to continue on like it does, unaffected. So you will rarely see me writing about like, hey, Raw had a okay ratings week. It's like there's nothing there to talk about. Now, when Meltzer brings up like, hey, we were hitting near historic lows across the board, Kate, that's something, I guess. That's a bit of an angle, but it does. No, Dave, it does not mean Goldberg.
Well, hope not. Quickly on the Nitro book, just to reiterate what you're saying there is stuff in that book that if you're not educated on WCW will blow your mind. Like there's one part where they don't understand where the pay-per-view money goes, and like, that just gets credited to Turner. We don't know. It's not in our books. It's like, good luck running that company, man. Like Bischoff, for all of his faults, he deserves credit for it. That was a hard gig, seriously.
And it's funny, that book got me thinking, because we talk about like the great what ifs out there. What if Undertaker went to WCW when his contract was up in 97? What if Shawn Michaels, when he lost his smile, decided it was time to hop over, and then he becomes the third man? And that's not the great what if of pro wrestling of the last 2 decades. The great what if is whether or not Fusion would have bought WCW successfully and kept it running as a company. Because if it's still around, does the vacuum that the absence it created, does that create Ring of Honor still? Does Impact ever become a thing? Or does WCW just still limp along like it had been the previous 2 years? Is it dead by 05, 06? It's that question always interests me more than, what one random booking thing would not have actually affected whether or not Time Warner wanted to kill you or not.
Okay, this is a Dynamite preview, but who cares? Let's kick around this what if a little bit. Sure. So Ring of Honor, I think, would occur because Ring of Honor's purpose was to fill the gap ECW left, right? For RF Video, which, sorry to hear that. But, I think that part you can say confidently, as confident as you can be about what if, I think Ring of Honor goes on. TNA feels like there's no reason it would have happened, right? Like Jeff would have been one of the locked guys in the new WCW.
His dad would have had no inclination to make the promo for him. No.
How successful WCW would have been is, I think both of us probably are going to reach a similar conclusion in that probably not much.
I came to the conclusion it probably would have looked like, eventually it would have looked like what TNA did in 2010, where the guys like Hogan are still glomming onto it because there's money to be made there, and there's an obvious undercurrent of potential of a generation of wrestlers underneath that wind up defining wrestling we watch today.
Yeah.
But I'm still not quite sure how successful it would or wouldn't be.
Yeah,
and then it's like,
go ahead.
Then it's the domino effect. Does AEW become a thing? Is the vacuum there for that to exist?
That's a very scary thought. I mean, I think Bischoff in some ways deserves more credit, but also it's like the idea that he would have been the one behind the actual, like the Fusion deal happens, but he'd be in power position, right?
Mm-hmm.
He wasn't going to be the guy to like look towards a new era. Like he would have kept spinning that wheel. And I think, I don't know. It's a weird, like, it's hard to say because people lose their jobs and it's awful morbid, but there is something to be said for promotions ending their like cycle of existence. Like,
right.
You watch the last 2 years of WCW and it's You know, there ain't a lot.
Something had to
going on
change.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, was Bischoff the answer? I think there's a lot of evidence just he wasn't, to be honest. But it is interesting. We'll do a 4-hour podcast with that one day on another platform. But AEW Dynamite is apparently tonight.
So it is. I've heard in Long Island, perhaps.
Yes.
I don't know. I don't know if you've heard, Joe, but the WWE ran that arena very recently, and the ticket sales are overwhelming in AEW's favor. Now, I don't know if you know this, Joe, but I think that means AEW's won. The war's over.
See, I'm glad you brought this up because this is actually what I wanted to talk about, and that's why I said with ratings earlier. I'm fascinated by like how you and I and folks in our little world here cover this stuff.
Yeah,
because you're 100% correct. Like wrestling with the Monday Night Wars and all that documentary and all of that stuff, where the way they've branded it through the years, they have basically said quality tracked and correlated perfectly with the ratings. When our show got better, our show went past theirs. That's what they basically said, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there is generally a thing in entertainment of people like the stuff they enjoy to be popular. That's fine. Like, or sometimes the opposite to an extreme effect. But I am kind of fascinated by the way that we, as people that talk about wrestling, separate critical success from commercial success, right? And like the idea that in all forms of entertainment, in all art forms, there will be stuff that is a smash hit for us dorks that cover it every day that just isn't for the general viewer.
Right.
And I'm fascinated by wrestling's kind of, like the folks that watch this show probably heard me talk about way too much, so my bad. I'll let you go on this because like we don't really do that in wrestling, right? Like we always tie it to, but what do you do for business? It's a weird thing to me. What do you think about that as like a broader topic?
I think that kind of falls into the argument of what is pro wrestling more of? Is it more art or is it more business?
Yeah.
And it depends entirely on who you ask. If you ask Bryan Danielson, he'll say it's an art. CM Punk even answered a question. He said it was an art. I thought he was going to say it was a business because the business side of it kind of kicked his ass there for a while.
Yeah.
But if you talk to the Good Brothers, you know, they're going to tell you, no, it's a business, brother. And it's about Kevin Nash will tell you it's about the money and the miles. That's the only thing that's real. Like, so it really depends on who you're asking. I think kind of the brilliance of it is that both can exist.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and you can find success targeting both. You know, WCW recruited its talent effectively from the business side of things. They said, hey, here's more money, here's fewer dates, here's guaranteed contracts. AEW is coming at it from the perspective of, hey, do you want to have the best matches of your career and opportunities to do effectively whatever you want from a creative standpoint?
See, the reason this is fascinating right now is that I think from an artistic standpoint, the usage of CM Punk has been pretty awesome. We've got some really cool matches. Like Matt Sydal match, Daniel Garcia matches, they stand out as examples.
Lee Moriarty, it was fun.
Moriarty, perfect, yeah. But like, I think we can all agree, if we're being honest with ourselves, that if we got given the book tomorrow and they said, your job is to beat Raw in the demo every week, you would definitely book Dynamite differently, right? Like, you'd only see this, like, if you really think about it, right?
Mm-hmm.
You would only see the top 20 to 30 guys every week. It would be more like traditional US wrestling where, you know, you have this week a tag match, CM Punk and Bryan Danielson versus Adam Cole and Kenny Omega. Like, that's what WWE would do with that roster.
But then you got to remember when you're booking the show, like if you ask me to book you a show where the demo beat Raw for 1 week, sure. Yeah. You pull out some insane matches with some big stipulations and you put it in the biggest arena possible and you say, let's go for it. But then what do you do the next week? What do you do the next month? What's smart about it is that Tony Khan's looking at this from the long game and not just from, hey, how am I beating them this week?
I honestly think sometimes he is almost like an extreme patient, you know? Like, it's really funny when you see people on Twitter talking about hot shotting and it's like, brother, there are times where Tony keeps too much stuff in the chamber. Like he takes his time with that stuff. But
I'm good with, and like people complain about the Punk stuff right now. It's like, no, take your time.
Right.
Because what they're not acknowledging is the 7 years of ring rust he had. Bryan Danielson was in the main event of WrestleMania. He's good to go now, and he proved that with his first match. I'm good with him getting immediately injected back in. Punk, I think they actually took into account, it's like, yeah, dude hasn't wrestled in 7 years outside of on the set of heels. He kind of needs some tune-up matches.
And that's what's interesting is, like, for whatever I think objective's a hard word to use, but however, you want to frame it, what they're doing with Punk is way more interesting from a story point of view, as you just said, than just being like, how do we maximize Punk? He's going to wrestle Kenny Omega, and I find that balance to be interesting because my conclusion is AEW wants to be number one, but as long as that show is viable and it's sustainable, I think Tony Khan wants to do wrestling a certain way, and it is long term, and it is, more rotational. We're not going to do 100 rematches. We're not going to see the same guys every week. And that sounds kind of shady, but look, we have to be real about it. The way WWE does their TV, they overexpose their guys. That just is what it is.
1,000%.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I think it will be a fascinating story to follow over the next couple of years as these ratings. I'll be honest with you, man. I don't know if AEW's rating's going to go up. I feel like the other one's going to just slowly slide, and we might meet somewhere.
That's been the trend for 15 years. So why wouldn't it stop? Why would it ever stop sliding down?
Yeah, it is. It's certainly something to talk about. It's hard, I think, because for folks in our position, and the chat probably is in a similar. We're all on Twitter, and we read the discourse and all that stuff. It's like it's gone to two extremes now, right? Where if I tweet about the ratings, people are going to hit me up and be like, oh, come on, man, don't talk ratings. It's like, well, there can be interesting conversation. It's all about how you do it. But nonetheless, I saw some people in the chat talking about this earlier, so I'll probably acknowledge that they're here. MJF, Connor, is he getting booed tonight or is he getting cheered?
God, I don't know, because he is really trying to position himself as the homegrown kid from LI, and he wants that to he wants to be the guy that is connected with that location. And I love how he's like, I'm going to be bigger than Piper in Portland. It's like, man, who would bring that up? But that's brilliant, because the first thing you think of is Punk Chicago, and when he gave that line, Punk laughed. I was like, no, I think he popped him with that one.
Yeah, his other one was Brett, right? Didn't he say Brett too? Yeah,
Brett and Montreal. No, I think it will be half and half, and he will react to the boos and be like, how dare you boo me? Long Island sucks, and just get the whole place to start booing him.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm kind of fascinated by what this Diamond Dozen deal looks like, because so here's the names that have been announced, because we know Team Taz, right? We got the big promo, so we got Hobbs,
125% to Leo Rush's 1%.
So we literally all we know is Team Taz plus MJF, and it's like, I wonder what the kind of talent pool we're going to get. Another 8 upper mid guys, or are we going to get some luminaries from the C shows? I don't know.
I'm thinking it still ends with MJF in some capacity. I'm thinking instead of him winning, Wardlow wins.
Yeah.
And then it furthers that storyline to where every time MJF wants to cheat, Wardlow has to give him the ring, as opposed to him just always having it on hand. And then eventually he just says no. Because we're leading to that at some point. That's a time bomb. But I don't think you want to. I always felt like giving the ring to MJF was just a hat on a hat. Like, he's going to cheat regardless. He doesn't need a little prop to do it. But if we're going to tie it into another story, I'm good with that.
Yeah, see, this is the thing that I always forget. Cheesenet mentions it. They do the thing where, the last two...
The final two get it. I'm thinking it's Wardlow and just somebody else, and Punk causes MJF to get eliminated. Because I don't think Punk cares about the ring. I doubt he's in the match.
I think Wardlow is going to throw MJF, but not in a way that completely severs them. Does that make, in a way where it's like, man, you showed me up in my hometown, but
or actually bumps him off the apron,
something like that. And I think next week will be Wardlow versus a babyface. I haven't decided who yet. and Wardlow will lose because MJ, and they'll kind of continue that direction. People talking about Punk in the chat. I don't think Punk's going to be in the Battle Royal.
See, if you want the ratings, if you want the attention,
There you
he mentioned all of Team Taz. Hook is a member of Team Taz,
Yes.
and has yet to debut. His debut will go down as the greatest moment in wrestling history.
Yeah. Yeah, I reckon that will do 2.5 million.
Oh, at least.
Yeah. Maybe 3. He could do it.
Vince fears Hook. I don't know if you've heard.
I have heard sources say. Sources very much say.
Backstage reports indicate. Yeah.
Yeah. So what do we think's main eventing tonight? Bryan and John Silver?
Probably. Or no, that might open, because they do this thing where they love to have a banger open the show.
Yeah.
And Bryan is like tailor-made for that.
Yeah, it's an interesting lineup in that obviously we understand what this show is, right? It's the final stop before winter is coming, which is, I don't want to get ahead of myself, it's probably going to be the last big show of the year for AEW, right? After that, you got like the Christmas shows. They'll do some stuff, but it won't be significant, I don't think.
Right.
So,
yeah, winter is coming next week, and that's it.
Yeah. Yeah, so I assume you're going to get some kind of traditional, like, pay-per-view build-esque vibe. Winter is coming, because like normally, what did Winter is Coming have last year? Was it a loaded card, or was it just the one match that really stood out? I'm trying.
So it was Mox, Kenny, and then the Sting thing was the surprise.
Okay, so listen, we just might as well get to it. Connor, are we going to get a surprise next week? And if so, will it be the Fiend, Bray Wyatt?
Man, I don't know how he feels about snow. Like, do we need the snow entrance and his lantern is just covered in snow? I don't think it's Bray. I feel like Bray's doing his thing right now with the movie. And I don't think he's honestly, I don't think he's any rush to get back. It could be Kyle, because there's nothing stopping him. And then we have the unquestionable time period with, surprise the system and all that. I don't know if this was trademarked.
The unquestionable time. That was incredible. No, I missed.
They gotta come up with something.
See, okay, this fantasy book is a little bit. I don't look, guys. Right. Speculation and all that stuff. I think we're pretty safe in assuming that Kyle O'Reilly is probably going to be all elite soon. I just get this feeling. I don't know, man. Yeah. Maybe. So, how does one play this out? So you got. I think it's a lock. The one thing we're all certain of, Bobby Fish and Kyle are going to be a team again. The question is, are they going to be with Adam again? How's it going to affect the Young Bucks thing? What's your gut feeling on this?
That has always kind of bugged me, that the assumption is we're just going to put the Undisputed Era back together, and then also Kevin and also the Elite, to where it's this amalgamation of like 3 factions. Mm-hmm. But it's because do we really want to have a third time where Kyle and Adam are buddies and then Adam betrays him again? Because we've done this twice. I think it would actually be smarter for them to go, no, Kyle's not going to align with Adam. He's been betrayed. He was betrayed in Ring of Honor. He was betrayed in WWE. Why the hell am I going to do this again?
Yeah. Yeah.
No, it could almost be a mirror of what happened at All Out, where Adam shows up and you think, oh, they're friends. They're good. They might have issues because they murdered him on BTE. And he's just like, nope, I'm good with everybody for now. Instead, it's Adam shows up. Adam's there. Kyle shows up and he's like, Kyle, we're reunited. And Kyle just kicks his head. And it's just like, no, we're not friends. I'm still pissed at you.
Yeah. And you can actually use that as like, you could have Kyle kind of being confused why Bobby Fish ever fell for this stuff, right? He's left him twice. So, and Bobby would,
And Bobby's like, dude, I was injured when this happened last time. You can't blame me for that one.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah, I think my personal instincts are that they're going to go with Red Dragon and the Young Bucks as a program, and Red Dragon will be a babyface team. That's my actual guess. I'm not a believer in the whole thing of you can't sign ex-WWE guys. That's lame. I do think it would be smart to not put Adam immediately back with the guys he was with for the last 4 years in WWE. And especially with what you said. Like, I wouldn't,
but And you don't have Roddy, which is kind of like we're all just kind of sitting there waiting for, okay, when are they going to lose interest with this, with the Diamond Mine thing? I hope they don't, because it gives him something to do, and I'd like for people to remain employed. But at the same time, you're like, it's Roderick Strong. I'd like for him to go back to
It's so strange.
Backbreaking the hell out of people.
It's really difficult to talk about with honesty because, like, what you just said is true. Everything you just said, I co-sign. I love Malcolm Bivens, and I think that act has a lot of potential.
They've yet to dip like 5% into his comedic timing. That's the weird thing with that one. He's doing it mostly straight faced.
Honestly, most of his skill set hasn't been touched on that show. It's crazy, but
you could have done that bit this past week on at War Games where Harlan picks up the girl.
Yeah,
you could have done that with him and him be like, "Why am I tall now? Put me down." Something like that.
Yeah, that would roll. Look at the chat being upset that you brought Roddy Strong, so I get to talk about him again. Good stuff, Connor. I appreciate it.
I see you post the GIFs. I know what's up.
It's great stuff. It's impossible not to look at the landscape and be like, it feels like Roddy belongs on the other show, right? Like the idea of Roddy running it back with Punk and Bryan 17 years later. Come on, man. But it's hard to say that without sounding like a lunatic because people get mad about it. And I understand why, because it's difficult.
And can we put this there's a thing I wish I could just kill, but people are stubborn about it. If you actually look at how many people WWE has released in the past 2 years, like actually released, not just the contracts expired, and then count the number of those people, and then count the number of people AEW has actually signed to full-time contracts, not the one-off, hey, we signed you to a level 1, you'll appear once, maybe twice. I'm talking full-time, they get the Is All Elite logo. It's like 10%. So the idea that AEW is just gobbling up everybody, not true. Yes.
And some of them offer a clear role. Like someone like Tony Nese, who I think completely deserves what he's worked so hard for a long time on 205 Live.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think I'm being dismissive in saying we know what Tony's role is going to be, right? Like, I don't think he's going to be the world champion anytime soon. He's there as a new version of what a guy like Spears was initially. He's
and
a guy
to count his abs,
Yeah, well, of course. Yeah, he's good at that. But perspective is needed sometimes. Undeniably, their roster is huge. Like, it's a real thing, but they book their show differently. Most of their guys get most of their roster. I mean, I haven't checked this completely. There's outliers. A real high percentage of their roster gets seen on Dynamite once every 6 weeks, I would say.
Pretty much.
And that's honestly never been the case in US wrestling with a roster of this size. It's just not the way we're used to things. So it takes some adjusting to, for sure.
I'll counter that. NXT actually, back when it was 1 hour bundle pre-taped, you didn't see guys for weeks at a time, and there was no issue with that. You weren't looking around going, "Why isn't Ciampa on this week?" Because there's not time to talk about him. Like, that was great.
I really think the wrestling landscape is missing a show that fits that description. A 1 hour restrained programming, not trying to. Like, the thing with NXT is it's really difficult because it benefited from the fact it was protected by the network, right? Like, the day after NXT, we wasn't all talking about the ratings because we didn't know who was watching the show on the network. It was impossible. No. It didn't have to make money because it was, it's the developmental. But man, was it great. It was like a throwback. You'd have a couple of squash matches, the one big TV main event. And some would say, well, NWA does that. It's like, nah, man, NWA doesn't have Finn Balor and Samoa Joe on it, right? Like, it's not the same.
It's sitting behind a paywall. It's deliberately a throwback to a bygone era, and you look at the talent that's there right now. Like, there's some good. Cardona's there, which I won't lie, that did get my attention, but Tyrus did not. And about 98% of the card we saw at Hard Times too. I wasn't going to tune in for that.
Yeah, it's something I've been talking about recently. Of we see these tweets a lot. I'm sure you see them of. When guys get released, everyone does that thing where they go out and they do this and they go, "Wrestling is healthy, everyone will be okay." And it's like, I mean AEW's there.
it is and it isn't, in that the floor for talent, like, you've got to be something special to get on any show of note.
Yeah.
But you also look at the free agency pool that's out there right now, which just got exponentially bigger because of Ring of Honor.
Right.
The great tragedy with that company is that right now would have been a great time for them to have reestablished themselves as the legitimate number 3.
Yeah.
Because when you look around, MLW is trying to resurrect Lucha Underground while also saying, hey, if any free agents, come on over. NWA is behind a paywall. You have no idea what's going on with New Japan Strong. It feels like they don't until COVID's over. Impact seems dead set on being the exact size it is.
Yeah.
And then you look at Ring of Honor, it's like, man, you could have been the legit number 3 because GCW can't be that answer.
Mm-hmm.
Because if they get any bigger, if they get television, they got to lock guys into contracts. And then you lose everybody from the other companies. Moxley's not going to show up anymore because Tony's going to be like, no, you're not. So I feel like there's a great spot there for number 3. And I don't have an answer for who that is right now. And maybe it's MLW. I don't know.
Doesn't feel like it's MLW.
I don't claim to watch enough of that show to say that it could be them. I am going to check out Azteca because I did love me some Lucha Underground, and I feel like that thing existed in its own wonderful little universe and should have kept going.
Yeah, see, this is what I find fascinating about MLW. Their TV is just on YouTube, and like, if you look at their viewership, it's like 100,000 views for the Thanksgiving episode. That's okay, but it's 60 to 70,000 most weeks, and I'm not trying to be dismissive here, but I legitimately don't see one person on my timeline talking about that show. I don't see anyone talking about it.
I feel like people talked about Fatu because of the gifts, and they saw how long that title ring was getting. That was kind of it.
Yes, and I think there's a real conversation to be had about, you and I, as people that are deep in the bubble, and the chat's with us on that, we look at the talent pool out there and we go, man, you could build one hell of a roster for a third promotion, a real third promotion, especially with Ring of Honor doing what they're doing right now, obviously. The question is, how real is the actual appetite for that promotion from a viewer perspective? We don't know until it happens, if it happens, right? But I don't want to go back to ratings, but that NXT number today, I couldn't believe that, man. Did you see Brandon's tweet about how the reruns was doing better demos than what NXT is right now? It's crazy. Yeah, USA's reruns was doing, I think, an average of 0.14, and today the 0.11.
See, I want to meet the 75-year-olds that are allegedly watching this show for that average age to be as high as it is, because I never hear anybody of that age talking about, gosh, did you see NXT this week? Boy, howdy. I don't get how that number gets that high.
Yeah, I'm very skeptical of all that stuff, but obviously it's a real thing, right? Like, I don't know nothing about ratings. If it's being reported that way, that's what it is. But when sometimes I see it, I'm like, there's no way. How are these people watching this show? I don't know.
Yeah. And ratings, the Danielson ratings is a flawed system. And they know that. We know that. Other branches of the entertainment industry know that. But that's still how ad revenue is determined. Yeah. So you kind of have to acknowledge it.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, someone asked here, and Joel Pearl in the chat explained it well. It's worth noting, folks, that some of these promotions, Ring of Honor being the most obvious example that's probably not the most fitting right now, but it's true. They are just content for their network that basically owns them. In Impact's case, I'm pretty sure they bought the network to air Impact, which was a choice.
So the company that owns Impact went out and bought access so that it would have a network for it to run on in perpetuity. Yeah,
that's interesting in a lot of ways, because then what does that mean? How do you grow then? Are you going to try and get on another network? You can't really, right? You just bought this one for the damn show.
No, and it's look at the audience size this time last year, and then when Kenny shows up, and then it's right back down.
Yes, I actually want to talk about it a little bit here because, firstly, it's worth noting because I didn't explain this well. When I said I was skeptical about the numbers, Dave, I was talking about this system, which Connor elaborated on much better than I could. Brandon's not. He's not.
No, Brandon's great.
He reports what he is.
And Brandon, legit, when they do those investor calls, and he can attest to this, I tweet out today is a day you follow him because he's going to explain this better than anybody else could.
Yeah, absolutely. It was more a case of the system is weird, as you explained. But Impact, this is a promotion that you could legitimately, if you think too much about what they are trying to do, you will lose your mind. Mm-hmm. I have no understanding of their model, and I mean this with love. I'm glad there's people getting paid, but many things to get into it. When Slammiversary ended, I was very positive, and I said, "Bless this promotion for using the Forbidden Door to be so relevant." And they closed the show with Kenny Omega and Jay White.
Hell, I was there.
You were there.
I was there. It was wild.
The idea that there was never any follow-up on that is incredible.
There was the slightest mention of it in that Jay has issues with the Good Brothers.
Yes.
Assuming that they're back in.
Right.
But that I feel like that played more into the fact that the Bullet Club Elite storyline is the great Schrodinger's cat of pro wrestling. It is simultaneously the greatest, most wide-spanning storyline wrestling could possibly offer right now, and at the same time, it does not exist.
Yeah.
It exists on Tama Tonga's Twitch stream and in a few tweets, and maybe on BTE if you squint, and on Impact that people aren't watching. It's fascinating. And you can chalk it all up to COVID, whatever plan they might have had, you stuck the fork in that one.
Yeah. So are you saying that you didn't expect it to be paid off with Chris Bay and Hikuleo versus the Good Brothers in Samstown?
I gotta tell you, I wasn't expecting that one. Although Chris Bay and Bullet Club is a fantastic call.
Oh, awesome! Yeah, he's tremendous. But what's wild about it is, look, we only know so much, right? Maybe there was more intentions for the Forbidden Door stuff, and things fell through, plans changed, all that stuff. All I know is they came out of it, and like Impact may as well have never had that relationship with AEW. Like they got nothing in the end. They didn't use it for anything, right?
No, because it was so one way. It was so and like they got right up to the line. Like Moose wrestled in Daly's place in front of no one on their paper. Like the Bucks showed up for that. And you're just like, okay, where's the part where Impact gets pissed that Kenny has your title and they storm the damn ring? Like, why wasn't that a story?
Yeah. Christian.
And from AEW's perspective, it was just like, we got what we want, and you get to have Kenny, 1 week out of the month.
But it feels like even with that, man, they should have built something more up for Kenny, Like, if you look at the pay-per-view programs he had, it's like, I mean, bless Sami Callihan, but like...
Oh, I walked into that match knowing darn well he wasn't winning. Like, exactly, it was like, right, this does not feel... say what you will about Sami. He's had a great career, but that's not the answer.
Right. And you wonder why not Chris Bay? Why not Ace Austin? It's frustrating to me,
I kind of had Josh Alexander circled, and that wound up being the answer, kind of.
Yeah, see, that's where I have no sympathy, because that's just... To me, that's... And look, I'm sure that the people that work there will explain it as heat, and they'll pay it off in April, but look, man, their audience is what it is, and I just refuse to believe they're going to gain a viewer from that heat.
Yeah.
Heat is... Look, there's a real thing about you have to have heat in a professional wrestling promotion. Some people lose their mind too far and get upset when every heel wins. Saw that this week. But at the same time... There were definitely people that just wanted to see Josh win, just give him that. And
I think it's as simple as heat is great for the people that are already watching. It will not get you more viewers.
Yeah. Yeah, and if your show doesn't have many viewers, it's not the best. It's not the best play.
Then it's just a lower multiplier. And then you're just like, well, when you're multiplying by one, you just get what you already have.
Exactly. Now this. I'm sure this is like partly in a pot because of the Impact thing. I will say, folks. Be aware that if TK wants to have a streaming service, he would need original programming also.
Mm-hmm.
And I am intrigued by the idea of Ring of Honor being that programming. Now, I obviously am not a scoop star.
Let me stop you on that one real quick. You got to remember that their deal with Warner Media doesn't necessarily let them just go out and buy other networks from competing companies. Yes. They've got to listen to that at some point.
It would be. I'm trying to think of what the best kind of what I'm seeing in my head. Because, like, do we think Ring of Honor? The press release was that we'll be back in April. But there's no I mean, the talent's talking about it like this is the last show. It seems like they're kind of. I'm intrigued if it's a case where they can't say they're formally closing down because they want to sell the promotion. Is what I'm kind of. That's my. And I know nothing, but that's kind of the sense I get.
Mm-hmm.
And the idea of Ring of Honor TV being like the NXT to AEW's WWE network, does that make sense? Like it's their in-house on the streaming service thing.
Right.
That intrigues me. But yeah, I mean, there's obviously a lot of moving pieces in terms of what you can actually buy. Also, let's be real. What are you buying at this point? There's no talent under contract. Like,
no, you're buying a tape library, maybe a set of belts.
Yeah. Which, you know, again, that's another thing where it's like Ring of Honor is an important brand to us that watch wrestling closely, but like you look at the viewership, you might as well just start a promotion. Like it's not, it's really difficult. I love Ring of Honor, man. I've loved it for years, but at this point, the value is really exclusive to the tape library, which is important. But like, how big it is in the grand scheme of things, I have no idea. I don't think any of us do.
Yeah,
it's a weird one. Now, I did see the chat was getting fired up about Impact Wrestling. This is important, I think. This feels like something happened. This Sammy Guevara deal.
Sammy downplayed it, and I think he did, and he certainly did not have to. If he wanted to be like, yeah, they fucked me over, would that hurt his standing at all in AEW? Absolutely not. He'd be right where he is now. I think it was as simple as they had an idea for him, and then something fell through. Right. Whether that was him being, I think it was like he got replaced in a match by like Black Taurus, which made people think, oh, he's in Decay somehow. And I thought nothing of it because it's like, look, either you give him the X Division championship or you're wasting your time because that's what that guy is made for.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. I wish I was more confident in like, you know, I wish I could more confidently say they didn't have something bad planned for him, but, you know, it is what it is, right?
I mean, if it's just like, hey, here's a death match with Eddie Edwards, it's like, cool. Who did this benefit?
Yeah. Yeah, so I'm going to circle back to my Impact slander now. You know, like we were talking about the AEW thing. And there's a very real argument that they're just, as you said the phrase you used is perfect. They just like, they're happy being that size forever, apparently. They don't seem to make any aggressive moves to change it.
No.
But my thing is like, if you're just exclusively, if your purpose is only, we're going to fill this 2 hours on Access TV every week. I don't even know why they're like in the free agent market. And I know that sounds really defeatist and cynical, but like they've got a lot of guys on their roster that frankly, bless them, you don't need to be there, you know? Like if you're going to just do the bare minimum. So I kind of, I don't know, like I guess they want to create buzz, but not really.
If they wanted to create buzz, why is Cardona doing his King of the Deathmatch stick in every other company except Impact, where he is just acting like normal? Like in GCW, like I will put his match with Nick Gage in GCW, like that was a moment this year.
Yes, it was. Yes,
that reaction, that was a defining moment of this year. Say whatever you will about the actual size of that company and the audience size for death matches. People paid attention to that, and Impact took nothing from that.
Mm-hmm.
And Cardona, on the other hand, is making money hand over fist because of the podcast, the merch, that, and now what he's doing with NWA. It's like, why does NWA recognize that there's money to be made here? Where with Impact, it's like, yeah, I'm going to spin my wheels and tag with Chelsea.
Yeah, it frustrates me because like I actually sympathize with them, believe it or not, in the sense that there is definitely truth too. They could be doing great stuff, and there is a portion of the community that would just ignore it because it's TNA. There's truth to that. What frustrates me is I can tell you all for a fact that I would like nothing more than to be watching that product every week and enjoy it. And I just find it to be just devoid of ideas. It's and the way that they do the thing where it's like everyone waits forever for these guys to move up the card, but they're not confident they're going to stay forever. So they just kind of, I mean, I think Eddie Edwards is a terrific pro, and there's always a role for a guy like that. But at some point, you know, you have to do something else, you know, and Sammy was the same. When it's like all of these guys have stuff to offer, but you can't just keep the same main event circling. Moose, someone tell Moose just won the belt. Guys, Moose has been a main event player in the promotion for years. He's just won the belt. That's all that's
Yeah.
happened there. Like, it's not like he's a fresh face. Josh Alexander, they nailed it, but we just talked about that. It's a shame. I don't know. Are you confident it's going to change anytime soon, though? Because I'm not. Like, it feels like that's what they are, as you said. Yeah.
Oh, they seem destined to spin their wheels.
Now, you mentioned there Matt Cardona, and that was one of the kind of big moments of the year, and I agree with that. I think that was, to me, that's a great example of how GCW is such a triumph within all this, because they are thriving in a way that, frankly, gives you no choice but to pay attention.
Mm-hmm.
I've never watched one of their shows from start to finish. Stylistically, their kind of core program isn't my thing. And there's nothing wrong with that, right? It's genres. I'm fine with it.
Sure.
But they're at a point in terms of momentum where I literally can't ignore them. And I know I'm going to watch the Hammerstein Ballroom show. I know I'm going to, and that's what you want to do, man. They're earning an audience in that regard. I'm with you on that. Cardona is one of the moments of the year. Obviously, I think the standout moment is Punk at First Dance. What other moments stand out to you as we head near the end of the year here? Signature moments of 2021 wrestling.
So I think Hangman and the title win, because I think when we look back at the first decade of AEW's history, that storyline will be one of the signatures. Yeah. Like it will be one of those things that is talked about for years in the way that we talk about Gargano Ciampa up until it fell off the rails. Like, and the fact that they nailed it from start to finish, is I think just it's what makes that a magnum opus. And then you learn, like, Kenny, the room was spinning, he couldn't lift his arm, he had a bum knee, torn abs, and a hernia. You're just like, and you were doing what? For how long? It's unreal. Signature moments. Bianca winning at Mania. Because when you look at the importance of that, the significance of that moment, you are the first two women of color to be in the main event of WrestleMania. And not only do you end well, you knock it out of the park.
Yeah.
That was a career defining moment for her. And even I look at her now, and some people will argue against it. I feel like she's broken through Vince's glass ceiling of, I only care about the 4 horsewomen and like 2 others.
I agree. Yeah, I agree.
She has elevated past that point. Poor Rhea, I'm looking at her. It's like the last 2 women in the Rumble both walked out of Mania as champions. Which one do you care about more right now?
Yeah.
The All Out as an entire show, I feel like also makes the list. I saw it in the comments.
Mm-hmm.
I was there for that, so I'm biased. But you had Edward Kingston versus Miro to start the show.
Yeah, that was a sleeper. That was a banger.
And
that match is incredible.
Then you had the match of the year inside the cage.
Yeah.
And when your worst match is Kenny Omega versus Christian Cage, like, that's your worst match. And then you turn around and go, by the way, we're about to have our Bash at the Beach moment. Here's Adam Cole and the guy that just main evented Mania.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that was...
Yeah. You had Ruby on that show. You had Suzuki on that show. That was incredible. That's honestly one of the greatest wrestling shows ever. I don't even think that's like a hot take at all. That's got to be... Yeah, that's definitely one of them.
And Punk on Ramp. Yeah, you mentioned First Dance.
That's the first. I think that's the top one. That's unlike anything I've ever experienced, man. That was... I've said it before on these shows, and I'd love your perspective on it. But
sure.
I'll never forget the emotion. And I'm not a big CM Punk guy. I am now, because I think he's been incredible since he came back. But I missed a lot of his stuff, Yeah. And I'll never forget sitting there waiting for that show to start and just thinking, I have no idea what they're going to do on this show. I know what they have to do. Mm-hmm. How they're going to do it, it's a complete one-off in history. I have no clue what this looks like. Right. And when that music hit, brother, that was something special.
1,000%. And, Punk said it best. They sold out the United Center on a rumor, and they sold it out in 5 minutes. And so a couple things. I remember I did not watch Punk in Ring of Honor. I was a bit young. I do remember his first match in ECW. I was there for his first UFC fight in Cleveland. And I was in the media scrum before and after asking him questions. It was a very young, shaven me. And then I remember watching this in the hotel room because it was SummerSlam weekend. I was in Vegas. But I was also at the Starcast interview he did leading up to All Out 19. And everyone thought he was going to be there. Everybody thought he was going to pop up in the show somehow. I remember sitting there watching him give that interview with Mike Johnson for an hour. And it's me and a dozen other journalists. And we're all, every sentence that he's putting out is a tweet. We're all listening very closely. But I just keep looking up and I'm like, this guy is completely relaxed. He doesn't seem to have any real regret at this point. He just seems very content with what he's doing now. He still is very happy with the acting stuff. So I got the impression that he was at peace and was kind of like, look, for as pissed off as I was in 2014 and that the infamous Art of Wrestling podcasts, which will go down in history. Let's be honest, those will go down as some of the greatest interviews ever. I got the impression that he had kind of gotten over all of the slights that had been thrown against him. Someone shouting egg repeatedly in the comments needs to please be quiet. That just threw me off. Punk, and even when he was on backstage, WWE backstage, you're just like, I don't really get the sense you want to come back.
Yeah.
So then when the rumors start, you're kind of like, well, what's this going to be? We knew they had talked. We knew Punk wanted a crap ton of money. What was he going to come in for? 5 matches, maybe? What I never expected was that it was going to completely rejuvenate his love for this and that he was going to completely invest himself in it and be like, yeah, I don't care how old I am. I want to wrestle the young guys and I want the matches to go long and I want to get every bump in that I can. And I want to wear long boy trunks to piss off the fans. And I want to go back to trolling them on Twitter, but also delighting them on Twitter when I interact with them, like Kate Hensley.
Yeah.
That I never expected it to go that direction. And I absolutely loved that. And that first the line in the promo that got me was when he says, I left pro wrestling when I left Ring of Honor.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, shoot, that's the bullet right there.
Yeah, that was the one that always sticks out to me in a different sense. Was when he was like, he kind of apologized to people, right? He's like, if I've let you down, if you've been disappointed, I had to do what was best for me.
Mm-hmm.
And look, man, if there is something in that story to take for everyone, I think, and you can go as deep or as on the surface as you want. You could just be happy he's wrestling again, and that's completely normal. But man, is there something to be said for a dude that he wore those wounds in public. He literally said I don't want to talk about professional wrestling. I'm never coming back. I'm done. And he's now this guy of energy, and you can see he's so excited to just be creative again. Him and Kingston is a moment, right? The whole thing, the promo segment, which was just, it was electric. And our friend Bob O'Neill was there, and he talks about it. It was just, you could feel it watching at home. It was incredible.
I wish it hadn't been followed by that gif of Eddie running in the
yes. Hang on. I think we have that. Hang on. Wow. Here we go. Look at this. Look at all-timer. And then the best thing about that is it cut to he was still a mile away from me.
He's like, okay, I reached the car. Cut the camera.
It was incredible. And the match was like, good Lord, was that match something, right? I mean, it was like 11 minutes. Incredible.
Yeah, it's just a fight.
Yeah, that's definitely one. Now, you mentioned Bianca Belair, and I'm glad you brought the Mania match. I think that one, firstly, it feels like so long ago. This year, good Lord. But I think that match is the kind of match that nowadays, especially, the match of the year lists will not fully appreciate. And what I mean by that is, and I love modern wrestling, but I'm just being honest. It didn't have the big, long finishing stretch, right? It didn't have this big, extensive back and forth at the end.
No, but I remember this. I remember the ending very distinctly.
Exactly.
The hair bit right into the
and the message of the match. Perfect. The message was basically Banks telling the audience, she's it. Like, I'm going to make it clear to you guys. She beat me flat in the middle of her finish. It was like 15 minutes, I think. And I look, again, it's great, man. Like, there's some great matches that go, and do the 101 kickouts. And I love those matches. I'm not like it used to be better guy. But that match was like a throwback to me. That was such a mature performance from Banks in that she didn't need to do that on that stage. She was like, this is about, we're going to make a star here. Now, here's the problem with that. I agree with you totally. I think people overstate Bianca's fall because if you look, like, she's not going 50-50, right? Like, she's beaten these women since she lost to Becky, and they protected her in the follow-up losses. However, I do fear that if they don't conclude this story properly, one of the big moments of 2021 in a negative sense is going to be SummerSlam. Because that was a choice, right?
I was there for that too, and you felt the oxygen just get sucked out of the room when you go. So here's how weird that show was. The Sasha news that she wasn't going to wrestle broke like an hour in.
Yeah.
And I kid you not, we had some of the best web traffic on my page that we had seen all year, just on that story blowing the hell up. It's like, hey, the Sasha match isn't happening. The show is going. They're still advertising it. Nobody in the arena knows what the hell is going on. And that whole sequence was so strange because then there's this massive, jubilation for Becky to be back because we had seen her in the arena. She had been taking those photos. We caught her out jogging at Money in the Bank, and it's like, okay, she's around. This could happen. It happens, and then you do the turn, and you don't do it in a way where it's so obvious that she cheated. You just do it, and then catch it, done. It wasn't like that. She didn't, spray mist in her eye or thumb to the eye. You can't do a low blow, but something to indicate it was a heel turn. And then it's like, oh, she's a heel now. You were supposed to hate that. And I swear Becky has gone back and forth on whether or not that was her idea. And even now, they can't seem to pick what she is because she was a face with Charlotte. She was just kind of still doing the man thing everywhere else, and the only difference is, her outfits are more outlandish now. You should hate her for that. I don't get that.
Yeah, I read a certain about Eric Bischoff. I read a quote about Becky he had where he was like, "She's the most authentic character in wrestling," and I think Becky's great. I think it's the furthest thing from authentic you could imagine for a performer of that caliber. It is so. You just mentioned it with the cost. Like, it's basically. They're a dead end in terms of what the character is, right? So the answer is, well, she'll just do what Seth does and just wear like these wacky clothes, and she'll be. And it's kind of Conor McGregor. It's just.
And again, like try to explain to me in a sentence what Seth Rollins' gimmick is at this point. I don't know, and I got to watch him every week for 3 hours. Help me, Joe.
I'm going to tell you this much now, okay, folks, and this is a promise to you, Conor, and this is a promise to everyone watching. If due to the aforementioned ratings, Seth Rollins wins that title, I will decide in the following month after that whether I care about the ratings or not based on how they react. Because if they go down, I will exclusively talk about the ratings on my shows. And if they go up, you'll never hear me mention them. Yeah. If Seth Rollins as champ draws like a 1.2 third hour, I'll just do a whole show in which I have like a graph and I'm pointing at it. And I don't... Look, it's really difficult with Seth because people overstate it, right? Like, he's obviously very good at what he does. But he has become, unfortunately, to me anyway, and this isn't even because of his stuff, what he says in interviews, man, that's fine, whatever. I don't care about that stuff. But he has become like the perfect example of what they do wrong on TV because he's just overexposed. He cuts 10-minute in-ring promos, which frankly, no one needs to be cutting 10-minute in-ring promos, No. And it's just... I just think he's a victim of the system, and unfortunately, because of the way he talks about said system, he never gets that sympathy. And let's be honest, that's fair enough. Like, that is what it is. But I just, it's a real shame when someone of his caliber is at a point where I have no interest in seeing him on TV. That seems telling to me. I don't know if it's just me. Where are you at on Seth and the whole thing?
I like his matches are great, and that's kind of a guarantee. Even if you want to make the argument like, oh, they all kind of play out the same. It's like, no, I all three of his matches with Edge were great. His match with Cesaro at Mania was great. And, whatever happens in the triple threat here on New Year's Day, I think is going to be excellent, I'm sure. it's just, I look at him, I'm just like, okay, you wear weird outfits and you got a catchphrase where you just shout words that don't mean anything. And you sound like Waluigi, where you go, I don't get it.
Fair.
I don't get it. But reeling it back to where we were with like the worst moments, is Becky it for you? Is it because for me, I feel like it has to be particular dates in November and July and April and August where we all just said, hey, let's cut everyone that you like. Especially Keith Lee.
Yeah, the releases are like if we're being, real humans about professional wrestling, that's obviously worse than just doing a bad professional wrestling booking.
Yeah. Okay. Let's bring it back then. Let's not say the worst booking moment as opposed to the worst real life moment where people got unemployed.
Right. No, you're right. You're right to bring up. I mean, it is. Look, let's be honest, man. It's one of the biggest stories in wrestling that they went from signing everyone to no one's safe. It's insane, and we all kind of tread lightly because rightly so, it's real people losing their jobs, but it is a massive story. We can't pretend it isn't. So you're right to bring it up. I think Becky is the leader in the sense that, in the way that you laid out, not only did it hurt Bianca, but to me it's killing Becky. Like, I mean, I watched that Liv Morgan match, and I was kind of perplexed by it as a whole package because it's like, how are we at this point where Becky is the status quo and you want the babyface to beat Becky? And then I'm sitting there thinking, but do the people want Liv to beat Becky?
If you follow Twitter, apparently Liv has been on this meteoric rise.
Yeah.
And this was her time. And look, I know Liv has a following.
Right.
I'm not here to say that you're wrong. It's not for me. It doesn't click with me. The directionless millennial thing, it's like, okay, I sympathize because I'm 28 and we've all got questions about the future, but it was like, okay, that's her gimmick apparently because we ditched the Jersey Girl thing. Okay, this is what we've got because we also ditched the Riot Girl stuff. And then everyone Monday was so sure it was Liv's moment. And then when it didn't happen, they're now so sure that she's winning the Rumble. And I'm looking at it and I'm just like, hey guys, 2 of the 4 horsewomen still haven't won a Rumble yet, right? You think they're going to let those 4 retire without all 4 getting it once? Like, give me a break here.
Yeah, this is where I look, people can watch wrestling however they want, and I would never enter their mention and tell them they're wrong. But this is where I sometimes think like people lack perspective on the roster. It's like I'm sorry, I can't see myself looking at that lineup and being like, man, we need to prioritize Liv. Like, Liv's a player, right? You use Liv, certainly. And I thought, Monday they used it for some good TV. Obviously didn't rate well, but there's a lot of factors to that. So that's not necessarily saying it's bad, obviously.
No.
But I just watched the match, and I didn't watch any of the show before the match, right? But I saw the video package, and I was like, wow, they might do it. But as soon as the match started, I think I tweeted as much. It was very clear to me she shouldn't win the title. And there's no shame in that. How many, Liv Morgan matches have gone past 10 minutes? Probably 1 or 2 in her whole career. It's not her fault. It takes time,
It felt like when they started suddenly bringing up Trish and Lita, which other than the date, there was no connection between those 2 matches. Yeah. And it's not even like, oh, it's the 20th anniversary. It's like the 17th or something. It was an obscure date. It reminded me of WrestleMania 35 in that their booking screamed, we want to do this, but we do not have the confidence that it is going to draw. So we are going to throw as much as we possibly can to make that main event matter. Not only are we going to have Ronda and Charlotte and Becky effectively force herself into the equation, but then we're also going to add both of the championships so that it's a winner take all. You couldn't have made the match any bigger without it's like, oh, and Ric Flair's career is on the line. Like, they ran out of things to keep throwing into that one because it felt like they weren't confident enough for it to stand on its own. And the fact that you're throwing in this random Raw main event from, what was it, 2004? It's like, it didn't even need that. I think it could have stood on its own by itself. It's like, why show that you have the confidence to push these women instead of acting scared as you do it?
Well, that is one of the big stories to follow in the next couple of years here, is this continued internal kind of grapple with the next era of the women's revolution, so to speak, right? Because we get it. The four horsewomen, you can't just phase them out. They're still the four of the best women on your roster. And you have to feature them. They have massive fan bases. However, it can't just be Bianca Belair that joins them. And to me, if you can't get Rhea Ripley up on that board, I think you're letting yourselves down as a promotion, because she's different. Because that's the key too, is when you have like an era as strong as those four have provided, and look, there's been ups and downs creatively, but they're great, right? Like they all, you need to add names to the list that stand out. Bianca Belair is different to any of the four horsewomen. So is Rhea. And I just think whoever it is, whether it's Rhea, Liv, Toni Storm,
Raquel, Dakota, there's options down.
You need to pick a couple, right? And if we do this show in a year or 2 years, you got to believe that if it's the same as it is now, it's going to be even more stagnant because, I mean, you can only rotate those four horsemen around so many times. It isn't their fault. They just, you repeat matches. And, that's something to follow. What do you think? Do you think internally they see that as like a hurdle to get over, or do they just day by day,
I don't know how they view that part of it, because you look at how they are changing their perspective on how they're going to recruit and develop. Yeah. And with the guys, we're reverting back to Vince's old habit of they need to be 6'3" or taller. They need to have some sort of collegiate athletic background. Like, shoot, I have a collegiate athletic background. I played college rugby, but you don't see me in the ring. It doesn't mean I'm qualified to go be a wrestler. Yeah. But then with the women, it's age. They're basing how they're recruiting talent off of age. Frankie Monet got cut 6 matches into her run, and by all indication, it was because they thought she was too old. And that's And I'm looking at it, it's like, I've never looked at a women's match and thought, gosh, this would be a great match if they were both under 30. It's so weird that they're going to target 2 things that a person cannot control. I can change a lot about my appearance, and if I have the means and time, I can change just about every feature I have. I can't change my height, and I can't change my age.
Yeah.
So why are we focusing on those 2? It baffles me.
It's also a complete misunderstanding of the fan base in that not only do people not care about it, the one thing that is a real factor is that, like, TV age in the sense of how long have they been on your television is a thing, right? So, like, someone like, this is mean, but, I'll say someone that everyone knows I'm a fan of. Dolph. Let's use Dolph. Dolph's great, right? Bless Dolph. He's been on the TV too long. Like, everyone has made their mind up on Dolph. He still looks great. He still performs great, but he's been on their TV for 15 years, and it is what it is. Yeah. Someone like Frankie Monet or Ty Valkyrie, like, she's brand new to your TV, so the audience, it makes no difference to them that she's, 38 or whatever Frankie Monet is. It's just, it's strange. And obviously there's going to be, I assume there'll be outliers to that. Like, I assume they'll look at Asuka and be like, well, I'd like to think not, but then again, with what we've seen in recent times.
It's like, well, we've given her every accomplishment she had, but darn it, she's 35. Out. Bizarre.
It is. As we conclude here, we'll do like another 5 minutes. This has been all over the place, folks, because that's what we do. If you expected us to sit here and do match by match, you're insane.
Sorry.
We talk about the professional. No, it's good. It's been great. There's one last big story that I want to kind of explore a little bit here with you. Big E, and for whatever reason, Connor, you listen to the Distraction podcast, so sorry to hear that, but you'll know I've always been a big proponent of Big E as the top guy, right? And I don't think I'm being mean to say that commercially it is yet to be a smash hit. That happens. And it got me thinking earlier on, I really think the Money in the Bank is like almost, I would go as far to say that outside of 2 or 3 cases, it's a myth in terms of star building. I think it has become an absolute just shortcut for them. And Big E is one that I'm circling because the way that he won that belt, man, for you and I that already love that dude, it didn't matter. But to the viewer that's just seen him as a tag guy for the last 5 years, I think it mattered the way that he won that belt. I think he would have been much better winning it in a real singles match that went 15 minutes with his finish. And this is just maybe a me thing, but I'm intrigued on where you're at on that as a concept because I'm kind of looking at these recent examples and I'm just like, they're not doing anything with it, you know?
I think the real problem with the Money in the Bank is that they don't have the plan ready when the event comes up.
Yeah.
They just look and go, oh crap, it's on the calendar. You get it this time. That's how it really comes off as. Like Dolph was the great example of, look, we're not actually pushing Dolph. We just need someone to win the case this year. And then ironically, him cashing in was an all-time moment for his career. And I'd argue an all-time moment for Raw. Like that crowd is undeniable. As far as E and the case goes, I've never focused on how a person wins the championship so much as I have what happens once they've got it, at least in WWE. Yeah. You know, because I think the stories elsewhere can be a little bit more, there can be more of a journey to go on. Because you look at Roman, look at this age-defying reign that we are on right now, where he is going to break Lesnar's record and then some. Look how he won. He won by showing up at the very end of a triple threat, and I think he speared one guy and choked out the other, and that was it. That was not a memorable way to win that match. Mm-hmm. And then it starts off this massive thing to where, you know, I never judged his title reign based off of that. Just like with E, whether or not this reign is good is going to come down to whether or not he is able to carry Raw on his back. And if they line up the right kind of opponents for him. Yeah. They've done okay so far. You know, Kevin having some depth to him again is fun. Seth is Seth, and, you know, Bob Lashley is going to go in there and destroy folk. I don't know if he's getting added or if that was just hey, remember me? I'm coming back for later. But, you know, once you get past these three, then I'm like, I don't know who you're bringing in.
I assume you get a match out of AJ, right?
Yeah. Once this whole thing with Almost is done,
but then again, maybe is Big E keeping the belt past day one? I don't know.
I don't see them dropping it because you know that they like to have a good champion going in on both brands into Mania,
right?
And who better than E right now? Well, honestly,
the problem is that you and I see it that way, but they 100% can see Seth as a better champ, right? That's my concern. What's the rest of the WrestleMania match for Big E? Is the concern? What is the
only because I know he wants it so badly. I would be okay with Goldberg.
Yeah, this is a particular case where it would be okay. I get that. It's worth saying, chat always does a better example of explaining myself than I do. This is a better case of them using the Money in the Bank as like a Band-Aid, you know, where it's like, well, just do that and that will get her where she needs. And bless Nikki, man. Bless.
She's trying.
She tries her best, but like that thing is that's going nowhere fast from what I can see. Connor, am I wrong? That Nikki
You're not wrong. And Joe Pearl's in here, and I think we talked about it. I have a feeling that they're going to find a way to change her name when they turn her. And then we'll start actually calling her Nikki Ash. And it'll be something like, I had this dream, and you started booing me, and my dream turned to ash. Yeah. Like, it's going to be something like that. It's going to be something that feels straight out of a comic book, which, hey, I know a thing or two about.
Yeah, fair. And we'll get to, I want you to promote yourself a minute because you've been wonderful on this show. But quickly, before we conclude on that, we're going to close the show with Nikki ASH fantasy booking here. You got to turn rear on Nikki, right? You can't actually do that angle. I mean, it's hilarious, that line. But, like, what does poor Nikki do as Nikki Ash? You know, you got to give Rhea some edge, right? Isn't that the play? I don't know. What do you think?
You can, because it's hard to boo Rhea. Like, true, it really is. That she basically forced her face turn. That felt like it came out of more popularity than their actual booking.
Yeah.
And I think even if you try to turn her and then she's feuding with who the hell knows on the babyface side, it's like, yeah, I'm still going to root for Rhea. Whereas with
true.
Nikki, I mean, there's still the crazy gimmick she was doing in NXT that you never touched.
Mm-hmm.
And that was enjoyable.
Yeah, you could also do the thing where you could have. I mean, I hope this doesn't happen because it would suggest that more law is on the way. But you could have Alexa corrupt Nikki too. They never left that, right? They kind of had that whole. Remember that arc? Do you remember when people used to tweet every day? This is building to the superhero versus supervillain clash, and I would have to explain to them that Alexa was a babyface, apparently.
Joe, can we? Oh, we're talking about worst moments ever. Can we just encapsulate all of Randy Orton versus The Fiend, and him getting set on fire, and then him getting healed, and then Alexa showing her demon face? I don't know, all the way up to her trying to get an Alka-Seltzer to foam in her mouth and it failing. Just take all of that and let's promise it never existed, and for the love of God, don't bring it back. And Shayna getting scared by a doll. Kill that too.
Did you see
kill all of that?
Jeremy Lambert claimed on this show, this very show we're on now, he claimed Alexa will be more known for the Fiend-esque stuff than anything before. And Bob O'Neill and I nearly left the program. We were mad.
Is this the unmentioned backstage heat between you two that was implied on Twitter today?
Oh, I'm so mad. I'm so damn mad about his Alexa Bliss take. But we'll get to that another time when we do the Fiend Chronicles on the Distraction channel. Connor, this has been absolutely wonderful. Promote yourself. Tell the people where they can find all your stuff.
All righty. Well, you can follow me over on Twitter at ConnorCaseyCB. Guys, I'm going for 2,000 followers between now and the end of the year. I'm about 1,750 right now. So if you can help me out with that, be much appreciated. Follow me on Instagram, same handle. You can follow in all of my work over at comicbook.com's WWE page. We're covering WWE, AEW. We dip a little bit into the smaller companies when we can. I'm also helping with comic book reviews. I got a movie review coming out. It's rare, but I get to have some fun with that. Once I get a PS5, I'll start doing video game reviews again because those are always a good time. And just keep an eye out for me. I can also find me over on the Comic Book Nation podcast. I will pop up on there anytime there's big wrestling news or anytime there's a pay-per-view coming up, because then I do a little preview.
Look at that, folks. A real professional. I told you we'd get one eventually. They thought it was Crosby only that would slum with us down here. There you go, folks. A professional here on the program. You can order The Distraction tomorrow, 3 p.m. Eastern time, folks. I don't know what that show looks like. I don't know who's on it. So come join us for that. Sign up, latenightgrin.com for some filth on Patreon. And enjoy Dynamite. And follow Connor Casey, of course. All hail. Good night.